Welcome to the Mindset Mile podcast, the show that'll leave you empowered to take action towards becoming the turned up version of your already awesome self. I'm your host, Aisha Zaza, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's go. Hey fam, welcome back to another episode of the Mindset Mile podcast. If you're listening to this on the day that it dropped, which is today, Monday, May 20th, it is my birthday. And every year I like to take a day to think about some of the highs and the lows of the previous year. And I mean, I don't spend all day thinking about it, but I'm like intentional just throughout the day reminiscing on the year and thinking of some really special memories and things that I learned. And when I look back on this year, man, it feels like I've lived several lives since my last birthday. A year ago, my son Oliver and second child was 6 months old, and I was at a low this time last year, just in the middle of battling like rough postpartum depression. I was exhausted and I was feeling overall just really daunted by the idea of living where we do, which is far away from our family while raising a family and just not having the support and the help that you always hear when people say it takes a village, right? But what do you do when you don't have that village? But it was around this time last year as well that my mother-in-law came out to stay with us. And that was a really pivotal time. I felt like I could finally come up for air, having an extra set of hands to help with the baby. And it gave me some flexibility to come and go a little easier without the effort of bringing Oliver every time I needed to leave, or just dragging both the kids along in general, or getting nap trapped at home. Because, that's a thing if you're a mom. You just are bound to your house every time the baby sleeps, unless you're out while he's sleeping, he or she. And then in June, I started executing my 8-week macro-friendly meal prep guide, Well Prepped, as you might know. And that was the first time in a long time that I felt like there was some sense of balance that was coming back into my life. I personally feel really happy and fulfilled when I'm creating and working towards bringing an idea that I have into fruition. It is like actually life-giving. It was a slow and steady process with everything else that we had going on, and it took me a couple months to put together. But I loved carving out days and windows of time amidst all of the craziness that was going on to test the recipes that I had and to shoot the final product and edit the photos and write out all the copy and so on. And then in July, I went to Jordan for 12 days, as you or some of you might remember, following along on the gram. My sister got married in Amman last year. And originally, the four of us, my husband and I and our 2 kids, were going to all go. But as the trip approached and the logistics of the trip started changing a bit, we ultimately decided it was easiest and best if I just go. And of course, there was a lot of work and preparation and just mental stress that came with leading up to me leaving on that trip. But after the almost 24 hours that it took me to get from door to door getting there, I was feeling very affirmed that it was the best decision we had made. Not to say that traveling long and with like multiple legs of trips and layovers hasn't been done before with a 6-month-old and an almost 3-year-old at the time, but it was just so peaceful going through that travel stress without all of the extra stress of having young kids. So then in September, my husband's schedule at work changed pretty drastically. He had to start working nights and weekends. And just when I thought things were kind of even keeling out a bit, everything got turned on its head. It wasn't easy on either of us, as you could probably imagine. For him, obviously, working up to 5 nights in a row and just never getting great sleep during the day against the body's natural circadian rhythm and just never feeling rested, but still having to manage being a present parent. And then me needing to take on more of the parenting load along with all the other things I have going on. 3 months into this schedule with no time off for either of us that whole year, and I felt like I was met with another wit's end. And I know I've shared this turning point recently a couple times, but for those who might be finding this episode without knowing the story, in the beginning of this year, I committed to taking back control of some areas of my life by committing to going to therapy 1 time a week, by getting back to doing yoga 1 time a week, by tracking my macros. And I wanted to do that for at least 12 weeks, which I'm still currently doing. And I needed to find childcare, or I wanted to find childcare for 3 mornings a week to help with Oliver. And I committed to doing dry January, which turned into February and March. And my year-to-date drink count is at 4. Not that, you might care, but I do feel like I just wanted to say that because it's crazy to me. I wouldn't say I had a bad relationship with alcohol, but I definitely was someone that consumed it casually and socially without thinking much about it. And now it's really not much of an afterthought, which is pretty cool. And I just feel so great, really not having it ever, or as frequently, I should say. And this year I've received dozens, if not more, really. I hadn't counted, but it's been a lot of messages on social media that I've received, and from people I've never heard from before that have mentioned to me that it's so nice to see me, like, quote unquote, back, or they relay some type of sentiment about how I'm glowing now more than I ever have before. And those messages have been so touching because when you're going through your own weeds, you don't always see the growth and the change that others do from the outside. And though, of course, I can admit I feel so much better, it is just affirming to know that the growth is actually felt and recognized by those closest to me, as well as people who don't even know me in real life. Elevate your summer getaway with Cozy Earth's luxurious bedding and loungewear. Picture this. After a long day of exploring new horizons or conquering mountain trails, you retreat to the sanctuary of Cozy Earth's bedding. It's not just about comfort, it's about rejuvenation. Ensure your body gets the rest it craves, no matter where your adventure takes you. Say goodbye to restless nights and hello to revitalizing sleep, whether you're under the stars or amidst the city lights. Their travel-friendly products packed in totes are the perfect companions for your adventures, both near and far. And when it's time to relax during long flights or post-hike wind-downs, slip into Cozy Earth's temperature-regulating bamboo joggers and pullover crew to stay cool. Whether you're exploring distant lands or enjoying a staycation, Cozy Earth has your back. My listeners have been given an exclusive 30% off with code MindsetMile when you shop CozyEarth.com. This summer, let Cozy Earth be your trusted companion on the path to health, fitness, and unforgettable experiences. So with that said, I wanted to summarize 3 things I learned this year that will hopefully help you in some small way with whatever you might be going through in your life right now. And the first is, the how will come when you figure out the why. And what I mean by that is, I didn't know how I was going to make so much of what I wanted to do in this last year happen from where I was sitting at the time. I didn't know how I was going to squeeze in making an entire digital cookbook amidst being a full-time mom to 2 small kids, running this podcast, getting to the gym, running my household, and all of the small things in between. I didn't know how I was going to fit in yoga 1 time a week or even therapy 1 time a week on top of the other things I needed to ask for childcare help with, be it with my mother-in-law or finding a babysitter or figuring out my husband's schedule. And I was really daunted by the vetting process of finding both childcare and a therapist, which were two big pieces of what I knew I needed support with. And I feel the same hesitations that anyone else might when it comes to making changes, whether that's needing to make a financial investment for that extra support or the mental energy it takes to make big decisions like this. But I got to a point where my why became much more important than how I was going to figure all of this out. I knew I needed to take action in January because my mental health really depended on it. And I wanted to feel better because I know that when you feel your best, even if your best is 50% that day, being able to give 100% of 50% is way better than only being able to give 25% of 50%. When you feel your best, you can show up as the best version of yourself. I wanted to have mental and physical space to be able to parent my children with more patience, love, and self-regulation. I knew that I wanted to make well-prepped happen because creating for me is not just a want, it is a need. It's my personality and what makes me feel fulfilled. And when I feel fulfilled in the more creative and ambitious areas of my personality in my life, I do then show up as a better parent, wife, friend, leader. You don't need to know who all the players will be or how it's all going to work out. But when you know the why, the how will fall into place. Second is nothing lasts forever. This is something we all know and can easily say when things are going smoothly. But it was a lesson I was able to live out in a way I hadn't ever had to do before, going through such a rough year postpartum. And it was reaffirming to me that spring always, always, always follows winter. If you're going through a tough time right now, I hope you find comfort in knowing that I couldn't see the end of that tunnel when I was going through it, but it did come. I know it's not going to solve your problems hearing that, but I hope it at least gives you a sense of hope you didn't feel prior to listening to this. And lastly, you are stronger than you think. When we're faced with adversity, it can make us feel weak because adversity is hard. It's not enjoyable having your patience and resilience tested. It'll chip away at your empathy, both for yourself and for others. But if you're actively doing the mindset work and have open communication with your partner or your family as you go through it, and if you can muster giving yourself a pat on the back for getting through another day, just one day at a time, I promise you will make it to the other side. It doesn't feel like it when you're going through it, and it will be easy to compare how you're doing to a version of yourself that has felt stronger and has thrived, but those were different seasons. But you are, in fact, strong enough to get through what you're going through. I wish it were different, but you can't shortcut a rough season. But what you can do is give yourself credit while you're going through it. So my reminder to you is you are braver than you know and stronger than you think. I have a birthday wish. My wish is to hear from you in some way or another, whether that is tagging me in this episode on social media or just sending me a quick DM, letting me know how the podcast has ever impacted you. That really is what gives me so much life. That would be my number one wish. I cannot wait to see you next week. And until then, make it a great day.